So again, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. Our session today is an interview with Balter Brewing. We have several other people on the panel discussion today, so I'm going to turn it over to you guys and take it away.
Thanks, Nicole, and welcome to all the attendees for jumping on for today's Hoppy Hour brewery interview with Balter, and we've got some extra special guests as well. It's the earliest Hoppy Hour I've had in quite a while, so 5 to 10 here in Australia. So looking forward to it. If I can just pass it around the room first to have everyone introduce themselves, I'll kick it off. So my name is James Monching, and I'm the Regional Sales Manager for Australia and New Zealand, working with Yakima Chief Hops. So yeah, over to Ryan.
Well, hello, good morning to all of those of you in Australia. It's here in the great Yakima, Washington. It's actually Sunnyside, Washington here today, but it's 5 o'clock. I've definitely got a nice beer here for this session with my good friend Scottie. Yeah, my name's Ryan, and I work for Yakima Chief. Proud to be a part of this great company and really excited about the conversation today. Steve, how about you?
Yes, I'm excited too. I'm Steve Carpenter, Chief Supply Chain Officer for Yakima Chief Hops, and a huge fan of Balter Brewing and Scottie's creations, especially that handsome Elvis, Scottie. I mean, it's a magical beer. It's 2 beers, 2 handsome Elvises, and you can sing any Elvis song in perfect tone. It's amazing. I can't wait to get down there and hoist another pint or 2 with you very soon.
And go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, just to answer Steve, great to see all you guys. I'm Scottie Hargrave. I'm the brewmaster of Balter, and a huge fan of everyone you see on the screen here. These are some of the very best people in beer anywhere in the world, and some of the most knowledgeable in their particular fields of expertise, which in this case is hops. So anyone out there, when these guys start talking, yeah, that's time to listen, I reckon. And I'm really looking forward to having a virtual beer with you guys, and then a whole bunch of real ones when we get the chance. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, definitely bummed it's virtual, but looking forward to the next one. I'm Jason. I'm with Peralt Farms, so hop farmer here in the Yakima Valley, and also with Yakima Chief Ranches. So also involved in our hop breeding program. So looking forward to chatting with everyone.
Beautiful. Well, thanks, guys. I might just kick it off, Scottie, if a bit of a introduction and history to Balter, and like when you guys started and how the relationship obviously began with Yakima Chief Hops.
Yeah, okay. So I first got approached to consider being part of a brand new brewery on the Gold Coast, on the east coast of Australia in, I think, January or February 2015. Met some people there. One of the guys who reached out to me was a guy in San Diego. So for me at the time, I was working at the Byron Bay Brewery as a head brewer there. And it was really quite flattering to have someone from San Diego, which is kind of at times, craft beer central of the US, to be ringing up and asking about a new brewery and if I wanted to build one and be involved. And yeah, after a probably 4 or 6 week courtship, I eventually said yes to that. Some of our founders included Mick Fanning and Joel Parkinson, Bede Durbridge and Josh Kerr. They're all a bunch of fairly famous surfers. I guess I had to be convinced a bit that this thing was going to be started for the right reasons, which for me was obviously about making the best beer we could. After a few short weeks, I guess they can convince me that it was absolutely about that, and I pretty much have had, I had free reign to build the brewery I wanted to build and make the beers I wanted to make, and my wife and I were able to be part of the founding group and invest in the brewery as well. So we got to work sort of early 2015. I spent 6 months sitting down behind a computer screen designing a brew house, which I thought would be the best job in the world. But after about 4 hours, I realised I'm not very good at sitting down for very long. So that was kind of a painful 6 months. But once we got the gear here, we started building the brew house, and I spent most of Christmas 2015 underneath getting it up and running. And by the first week of March 2016, our very first beer rolled out the door. So that was 364 days since I'd said yes to doing it. And we had the first beer out the door. And that was Balter XBA, which has gone on to, I guess, make a bit of a name for itself. And it certainly wouldn't be the beer it is without, a huge amount of Yakima Chief hops in there, which I think is one of the real reasons that beer is what it is the quality of the ingredients we use, and in particular the hops. Just a little aside on that beer itself, that was a beer for me that I first wanted to start making beers that really represented where I thought beer was going to be, not where beer was right now at the time. In the sort of year or two before Balter started, I was still obviously brewing professionally, but I was also brewing at home a lot on the weekends, and I had more access to the hops that these guys grow and care for and distribute and breed, and it opened a new world for me of flavour and aroma and character and presence in hops. And for me, it was a great way to try and work out how I was going to use these hops to make something that I was really keen that could actually be a great beer that was looking for a home. And who knew, but that home ended up being Balter Brewing. And, again, I was trying to make a beer looking into the future a little bit about where beer was going to be, not where it currently was. And it all worked out pretty well. Fast forward another couple of years, and from memory, I first met Jason in a vegan restaurant in Marrickville in Sydney, actually, I think. And thanks to Ryan, who I'd met a couple of years before. I'd seen this sort of quiet, very, very polite American guy, sweep into town most good beer weeks, which is around May, usually down in Melbourne, and got to know Ryan and realised, he was a fantastic person and really knew his hops, and obviously a great businessman and very astute, but also very, very, top shelf as a human being. So we made fast friends, and through Ryan, I got to meet Jason, and we hit it off straight away. And thankfully, Jason was able to tolerate about 500 questions in about 30 minutes from me about hops. And I think the reason Jason probably got through it was because every time I'd ask a question, Jason would answer it, and then he would answer the next 3 questions I was going to ask anyway. It was an amazing piece of, premonition, I suppose. He knew where I was going next, and it just started to open up a world for me that was amazing to see. That there was, I'd spent years, hops had been how I made my livelihood, but I didn't realise once you peeled back the outer layers, there was just so much more to learn and so much more to realise what you could do with hops and how they behave, and also the commitment that all these guys on the screen here show, and how much effort these guys and their families and all their farmers have to put in so that I can use hops and make a beer. That was a fantastic first introduction to Jason. I remember at the time, I think there was a craft brewers conference here in Australia, down in Sydney, and it might have been the first time I heard of Sabro, actually. And I do remember the first time I smelt that hop, just being absolutely blown away, and just, all these thought bubbles popped up in my head straight away of what sort of beers I could make with these hops. And that was just super inspiring to be able to have something that took 10 or 12 years of Yakima Chief Ranch's commitment and effort to make a hop like this, or grow a hop like this, I should say. And then, a sort of dumb old brewer like me gets to smell those hops and experience them, and then just the inspiration that comes from them was amazing. That obviously, I do remember then that Jason and I were on Brews News, which is a craft beer radio show here in Australia as well. And Jason was telling me about the ranch at home, and we delved quite a lot into hops and also bison on the farm. And promise was made that I was going to go out and see Jason and see the guys that year. And the promise from Jason was that if I did actually show up, they were going to cook me a bison burger. And thanks to Jason and his dad, Steve, that all happened in September 17 or 18, I think it was. And yeah, it was really cool to actually get back there and fulfill that promise I'd made to Jason. And around that same time, I met the Yakima chief himself, Mr. Steve Carpenter, and again was just blown away by the humble nature of all these wonderful people and their families and their knowledge and their commitment to excellence and helping brewers right across the world. You know, it's been a pleasure knowing these guys ever since. I'm one of, I don't know how rarefied the air is where you get to have a tour around the Yakima Valley or a whole day to Steve Carpenter by yourself, but I certainly got that. I've had that experience a couple of times and I feel very, very privileged about that. But even more so, just while I'm thinking of it, Steve, one of the most important possessions, one of the most prized possessions I've got.
There we go. The Hall of Famer himself. Yeah.
A signed Steve Carpenter baseball card. That's when I knew I'd hit the big time.
Oh my goodness. And you've even got it in a frame. My goodness. That yeah, those are going on eBay right now for about $5, and you don't get the $5. You have to pay the $5 to get somebody to take it. So oh my, that's awesome.
Yeah. I usually just go for the bubble gum when I get the cards.
Steve, how's Crewport doing this year?
How's what doing?
How's the Crewport team doing this year?
You know, due to COVID, our schedule's been pretty limited, but we're in the pennant race again, and we hope that you know, we'll make it to the World Series. But we've got a little bit of work to do to get there.
Well, Scottie, next time you come to Yakima, we have a new baseball card, actually. Steve, he got called up from the Crewport baseball team, and last spring, he was a Mariner. He spent a brief season in the Mariners Hall of Fame team. I'm not sure on his stats, but I know that our phones were off the hook at Yakima Chief because it was quite controversial that he was going to leave us forever because he hit the big times in baseball. We're glad to have him back.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a week at the Mariner Fantasy Camp. My wife decided that would be a good Christmas present for me, and I was 62 at the time. I barely survived it. There wasn't a muscle in my body that was. I'm just now healing up. It was terrible, but it was the most fun I've had in a long time. And immediately after the camp, I came home and I camped by my telephone for about 2 weeks, just waiting for the Mariners to call me and offer me a contract. And that never happened. So luckily, Ryan took me back and has kept me gainfully employed since.
It's their loss, Steve.
Yeah,
their loss.
That's an incredible story, Scottie, of you say, telling the story of how in 13 months you went from a concept to producing beer. It's a similar story we see here in the Valley. I think, Jason's farm and the Carpenter farm, whenever there's an opportunity or a demand to see these farms just get at it, transform, throw up a new picker or a new kiln. You are cut of the same type of cloth as these characters here, just to be able to respond to an opportunity in such an amazing way. The interesting thing that I guess in my experience with Balter is that I met your brewery before I met you. I remember wandering into the brewery and seeing this big giant shed back in 2016 with a really cool bar, interesting logo, you know, a black building with just a small smile on the corner. And I said, these guys are different. These guys are going to do something different in the industry. And now every year when I have the great opportunity to go back, now you have like 4 times the space at least. And when I first wandered into that brew house, that brewery, I was like, what are they going to do with all this space? Open a roller skating ring or something?
I think that's what it used to be.
It's just, it's amazing to see that the growth that you've been on, Scottie, that the family feel for the brewery, you know, like you said, when I first met you, someone asked, and I don't remember if it was on an interview or in a crowd or just over some beers, but someone said, oh yeah, that's the brewery of those surfers. And you're like, wait a minute, this is the brewery of beer. I think in 2017, I was able to meet that whole team though.
Yep. That's
Mick
right.
and all those characters. You were having a big piñata, a beer that looked like the
XPA can. That's that's a tinata.
A tinata. Thank you. I'm still working on my Australian. I'm you know, Australian's my second language.
Oh, mate, you're a near permanent resident, or you should be. So everybody who's listening, actually, I knew Ryan for a few years before we actually got Balter going. But like I said, usually it was seen once a year at the big beer festivals down in Melbourne or whatever it was. And I remember that day actually that I'd been in Brisbane. I was judging beer, and Ryan's rung me up and he goes, "Well, I've just come down from Brisbane to see your brewery. Where are you?" And I went, "I've just left the brewery and gone to Brisbane." But yeah, you guys are all welcome anytime. You know that. So welcome back. I should say I did have the pleasure, for the folks out there, I did have the pleasure of showing Steve and his wife and Ryan and Nikki around Balter. It'll be approaching 2 years ago now. And we've expanded quite a lot since then and using a whole lot more hops, but it was wonderful to have you guys there. And in my office, which is now our control room for the new brew house, I had to show Steve, I had a tin tacker on the wall, and it was the Yakima Chief tin tacker. And I've got a photo somewhere of Steve doing his profile with the Yakima Chief. You get it?
Yeah.
But yeah, things sure have changed a little bit around here since then. Things keep going that way. The roof's a bit taller than it was. So.
Sure. How do you, hey Scottie, how are you able to fit in your office with all those plaques and trophies hanging on the wall? That's what I want to know.
I keep getting kicked out of my office. It's usually not much more than a broom cupboard. I don't know what I've done, but I've usually got the worst office in the place. But also, if I'm quite honest, I've got the best office because my office is the brew house. So yeah. I try not to complain too much.
And you've got the new brewery online, Scottie? That's up and running?
Yeah, mate, it's actually running right now. I've been here since about 10 to 6 this morning. We were probably just about to mash in our third one right now. For Steve and Jason, I think it's 60 hectolitres, so that's about 50 barrel brew house, right? Somewhere around there. So as of probably right now, we've done 140 something brews in 5 weeks on it. So yeah, we're certainly flying along at the moment. So yeah, it's going really well. You know, it's fully automated Crohn's brew house, so it takes a little bit of getting used to, but you know, more mouse clicks than I'm used to. But you know, that's evolution, baby. That's technology, and it's a wonderful thing, and it's just helping us make great beer. All these hops shining. So Yeah, loving it so far.
Well, I know you and Jason have had a lot of dialogue. Like you said, that first introduction, and then Matt Kierkegaard on that Brews News interview, he said that was the easiest interview he's ever had because he basically pushed play and you guys just talked hops for the entire time. Since then, you guys have had a lot of dialogue. Scottie, you've created a lot of magical beers, and Jason, you continue to do what you do in hops. Jason, maybe you can talk about some of the path since you met Scottie on that interview when Sabro was just coming out. What's been going on in the hop fields?
Yeah, well, to the point Scottie made about, answering his next three questions, but then the answer of his previous question, it's easy to do when you're talking to somebody who shares the same level of, passion. And when you recognize that, of course, the conversation flows so smoothly. So, that's where that Brews News interview, or whatever you want to call it, was much more of just a conversation, sitting around drinking a beer and chatting with a friend. So, that's easy to do. And, it was a fun time because, being where we were, but also because we were releasing Sabro. And of course, around that time, of course, Sabro continues to be a real favorite of mine because it's so unique. It's so different. And, we're really proud of that fact, that it was, brought some new aromatics that we'd never seen before that translated really well into beer. And so from that time, since we released Sabro, we've kind of continued down that path. And, you look at where we're going now with flavor. 692 was released this year. This just recently is Talus. I'll always know them by their numbers first. So, but 692 is just a beautiful hop that I think, has some similar attributes, but definitely stands on its own. So, yeah, it's been an exciting time continuing to develop and continue to grow with the brewers like Scottie, and yeah, it's pretty outstanding. Something you said earlier, Ryan, was caught my attention about the the amount of change that we've seen in the hop industry just in the last few years. And I always go back to the fact that what doesn't amaze me is the amount we've changed in, say, the last decade, the amount of investment we've made in the last decade. If you look at our farm as an example, from start using 2012 as a starting point, the previous major investment we made on the farm would have been around 1980. So what amazes me is that we've been able to come as far as we have in the last decade, build enough confidence in this whole wonky thing we call hops, and actually make these investments. And it's because of the fact that we can, we have these relationships with Scottie and Balter and like-minded brewers. And so, so we just continue on that path. We're starting, I think the last few years, hasn't been without its challenges, but I think because of the way we've all taken this like-minded approach to the business, we've been able to build some real sustainability into it, which is pretty exciting. So, yeah, that's kind of, that's squarely where our mind is still. So.
And I know last time I saw you in person, Jason, we were talking, you and I and Pete and Joss from Garage Project, and I was there to, I think the boys had to fly out somewhere, but I stuck around and selected some of your Sabro that went into this beer. And, we released this at the start of this year because you guys were able to fast track them out to us. And where was I? Mid-December, I think. I was in Wellington and we brewed the first half of that. And 2 days later, the boys followed me home and we brewed my version here. And, it was just amazing that it was only just under 3 months, I think, before that we were in your tasting room and talking about the beer we were going to make with the hops that you were just bringing in just now or whatever. And it's just amazing. And I've got to say, this beer is now 8 months in the can, I think, nearly 9 months, and it's still fantastic. I would never normally say that about my beers, but the Sabro, the character just hangs on so long in these beers. It's just absolutely outstanding. And one of the things that and you know this anyway, but one of the things for the folks out there that really blows my mind is that 12, 15 years ago, when you were first dabbling with the Neo-Mexicanus thing and the mama to this hop, is like, how the hell would anyone have thought back then that coconut was a good idea in beer? Like, I'm astounded. That truly is looking into the crystal ball, a long, long way ahead. And I really get a kick out of the fact that it's almost brewers like myself are trying to catch up with breeders like you guys, because you're 15 years in front of us, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So
you probably get too much credit, Scottie. Just, you know, it's kind of one of those doing what you love things, you know, and then you come across something weird like coconut in a hop. You know, certainly the curiosity is going to kill the cat, right? You can't throw that away. You got to hold on to it, and I think that's where we've been able to shine. It's not necessarily that we had a great crystal ball or we're that much smarter. We might have just been more curious, you know, and kept those things around. Whereas maybe your traditional breeding efforts might have been focused saying, no, something like that won't work. That's not what hops smell like.
Yeah.
We would just continue down that path because of curiosity more than anything else. We certainly had no idea we'd be where we're at now, you know, with the flavors and aromas and where, you know, the styles of beer that are so huge and popular now. There's no way any of us could have predicted that. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's still, I mean, I'll certainly drink to playing around and your curiosity then, because it's amazing. Like, I feel like Sabro and beers like this they are 2020 beers. They're 2019 beers. They are of this time. And, you know, you guys had to make those decisions a long time ago, and I'm forever grateful that you did. And I'm constantly looking forward to what's next.
You know, that decision on something like Sabro happened because Carl Van Evenhoven was getting into homebrewing at the time, and he was curious. You know, he was looking for something different. He came to me one day and he said, "Hey, you ever come across anything that's just different that you want to, you know, just give a try?" And literally, like within a day, I came across what eventually became Sabro in the Single Hill, and smelled it, and I thought, yeah, I'm gonna give this to him, let him try it, and that's really where that came about. So it is born. All that literally was born out of our own curiosity to just do something different, something creative.
That's fantastic. And I remember when we were in the tap room talking about the beer we were going to make, I do remember asking you, is the Neo-Mexicanus, is that like a whole new family tree of hop characters and different you know, different genetics and stuff that's just going to take hops on a totally left field off the side of the page, or is there something else as well? Is something like the Neo-Mexicanus big enough to be its own strain, I guess, or, you know?
You know, it's a tough question to answer. I think definitely as far as finding opportunity for new flavors and aromas, Neo-Mexicanus is certainly serves as an opportunity, but it's not like a panacea of you know, new flavors and aromas. We've done more breeding on it than just the lines that resulted in Sabro and 692. And I got to say that most of what we do doesn't pan out.
Yeah.
So, you know, whenever you're introducing wild germplasm into your breeding stream, you know, 99% of it's going to be garbage. Whether you're dragging along, you know, either, you know, disease susceptibility. I mean, you look at something like Neo-Mexicanus as a good example. True Neo-Mexicanus, it's been isolated from any type of domestication at all, will have never been introduced more than likely to hop downy mildew or hop powdery mildew, or maybe even some of the major pests. And so when you bring that in and start breeding on it, immediately the response has been, for us anyways, that there's a lot of disease issues. There's a lot of negative drag that comes along with that. And not all the aromatics are all that great either. a lot of times it's muted. You know, they haven't evolved to develop these great responses to pest pressure through developing new you know, aromatics and things that are supposed to, you know, either repel or attract the right or wrong insects. So it's kind of it's not a panacea. It's not guaranteed results, but I definitely think to your question, if we're looking for something new and unique, it's going to be wild sources, at least in the near term, that provide that versus looking, you know, so I always joke that the family tree of hops grows a lot more like a poplar than an oak, you know, because if you look at all the traditional aroma hops, they're either standalone landrace varieties or they originated from one or two varieties bred out of the English program back in the early 1900s. And interestingly, they were working with, Salmon was working with in England with wild hops back in the day. He's working with both Neomexicanus and Lupuloides. So it's not necessarily a new concept, but it kind of got lost over time. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there, but it's not going to be all positive. So.
Cool. The amazing thing that I've experienced in, you know, being new and learning a lot about beer and hops is you two are very similar in the fact that you're always pursuing the future, looking towards the future and way ahead. You've been so progressive, Scottie, with your beer, and Jason with your outlooks and visions on what hops can be. Scottie, you alluded to it, you know, like we're 15 years ahead sometimes, just trying to keep up with the amazing varieties that Jason's throwing out there to the world. And in the same sense, Scottie, you've taken beer to a whole different level. And it's just been amazing. The unique thing that I think maybe isn't always seen is the amount of time and structure that you put into the processes. You know, that's one thing that stood out to me is in your brewery, that is a structured process. And that's important, I think, for the industry. Jason, same as you, that dedication and, you know, what I've learned over these 7 years is just to be amazed by that blend of artistry to true craftsman, you know, dedication to structure and process. And I guess, Steve, you are one of the original founders of this company. You know, Scottie says they started Balter in 2016, and it seems, I would guess, for me, seeing that brewery, that seemed like a lifetime ago. But Steve, you've been at this, you know, now Yakima Chief 33 years and your family multi-generations. So Steve, maybe you can talk a little bit about kind of that balance between artistry into the future and process and structure to make sure, you know, for success.
Yeah, as I've sat here to listen to this and listening to Scottie and Jason talk, they're very similar in that they've got these structures by which to develop hop varieties and a structure by which to brew great beer. But at heart, they're both artists, and that's the beauty of it. Hop growing when I was a young man was pretty boring here in the Yakima Valley, I have to say. I mean, the primary variety we grew was the cluster variety, and they were known around the world as Yakimas, but it was basically slight variations of the same variety. You had your E2s and L8s, so you could kind of make that hop harvest last 30 days with different maturities. But that was it. And, you know, along came Nugget and Galena and some alpha varieties. But again, the focus of the American market back then was alpha acids, and it was however we could produce as many as we could per acre efficiently. And then when, you know, we kind of joined forces with Chuck Zimmerman and Jason, kind of, you could see that passion started to develop in him and that creativity. Even then, Jason, I think our emphasis was really on developing alpha varieties, and the aromas and that thing was just kind of a side thing, really. And then the artistry of craft brewing, led by people like Scottie, came along, and that just opened up a whole world of possibilities for us and the craft segment. And I don't think we've seen the last of it. I think it's going to continue. And for me, you know, one of the old veterans here, there is nothing more rewarding than to go into a brewery like Balter Brewing and taste the taste of your hops and these amazing beers. It's just, there's nothing like it. It's just, even, I hate to say this, but even if we didn't make any money doing what we're doing, that alone would make it worth it. Just seeing the results of what we put together, and then being able to taste that in a well-balanced beer. So just happy to be a small part of it, and happy to know people like Scottie that take what we produce and create such amazing beers with it. And the sky is going to be the limit here. We're going to keep going and hopefully continuing that, because there's just nothing like it.
I don't know if you remember, Steve, when I picked you guys up from the airport, when you guys flew in a couple of years back, and Ryan was telling Blaze and James and the other guys about it the other night, but I rocked up to the airport with a cooler full of beer because I thought I was just being hospitable. Might have looked a bit full on maybe for 3 o'clock in the afternoon after you guys had just got off a long plane flight, but I thought everyone would be thirsty. And if you remember, we went, I piled everybody into the van and we drove. We had a Balter event on down at a hotel called the Hotel Brunswick, just north of my hometown of Byron, where you guys all came to stay. And from memory, the first beer I poured you guys was a beer called Citrapalooza. You might remember. That's now in these guys, and I know Jason's had hazy as well, because I've seen the empty tinny in his tasting room as well. And we've just made that beer a core range beer, and it's gone through the roof. We absolutely cannot keep up with it. So I'm in a bit of a pickle, but it's a good pickle to be in. And again, you know, it's this reciprocal, this wonderful feedback loop between, whether it's, Jason breeding hops and Ryan and Steve looking after them and getting them to people like me who turns them into beer, which then, I guess, in a way feeds back to you guys, and you guys keep looking and we keep making new beers. And because of the work you do, we get to put beers like hazy, and that they're, you know, even 2 or 3 years ago, a beer like that probably wasn't viable. But again, it's that commitment to keep moving forward that I'm hoping keeps everybody in a job, but, you know, in a good place. And I think we're in a special time in brewing where there's a real evolution, I guess, going on. And I still think we're trailing 10 or 15 years behind guys like Jason, but at least we're on the move now. You know, long before I was a brewer and long before I would have been old enough to drink beer, I think beer globally was in a bit of a rut. You know, the only evolution in brewing was how efficient you could be and how simplified you could make your wort streams, and simple things like that. It really came down to engineering and finance and lowest common denominators and you know, almost rationalizing your beer out of existence. And thankfully, because of these wonderful ingredients and the passion behind them now, like I think beer is in a golden age. You know, I think in 50 years' time, maybe in 100 years' time, people will look back at this particular period in time and go, that's what saved beer. Hopefully, you know, that's what made such, you know, this beverage that's walked step by step with human civilization for probably the last 10,000 years. This is where it actually started to reveal its true self, that it was much more than just a way to get inebriated, or it was even more than sustenance as it would have been back in time. You know, it was able to draw creative people and artists and people with real passion and dedication and commitment, discipline and all that sort of thing to bring a lot of those threads of different folks right across the world from many disciplines. And I'm glad I discovered beer. I don't know, people often, I do get a few pats on the back about my beer from time to time, and I generally just respond with that, yeah, that's not bad for a concreter. So it's, yeah. And again, hats off to you guys. Like, I never really knew how much I loved hops until I met you guys. And again, like I said earlier on, I've been able to pull back the layers and realize, wow, this is just much more than flavors in beer or trying to have impact. This actually, everything that I see in my beers, all those characteristics I want to tease out of my beers, has to take a lot of effort and commitment from all you guys and all you growers. And how many things that Mother Nature has to allow us to have for it all to go right. I'm constantly amazed by it and enthralled by it, and it's just wonderful.
Yeah, beer's a cultural product. You're subject to the same forces of Mother Nature that we are. It's fascinating. It's a fascinating piece of the artistry that I don't think a lot of people, maybe appreciate. The fact that to replicate what you're doing year in, year out from a quality standpoint, where you're trying to balance the input of raw materials that are subject to such wild forces as Mother Nature or wildfires or whatever it may be, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Something I've definitely learned a lot about, how important that connection is. Of course, that's our mission for this company, is to connect family farms with the world's finest brewers. And it's not just a slogan or something that we talk about. This is what the business is making this connection. Scottie, when I first started, I would have never dreamed how strong this connection is. And it's really been driven by this mission for 30 some years. And it's taken this many years to solidify that. I mean, it's how James really came into the equation as well. We had the opportunity for the first time to hire someone full-time to represent us down in Australia. And we posted the job, and, literally hundreds and hundreds of applications, CVs and resumes flooded my inbox, and I would sort through them, and this guy sold toothpaste and this guy sold electrical parts, and that's all great and all. But after interviewing a whole bunch of people, it's amazing because we stumbled upon this young character who grew up on a hop farm. And I swear alpha acid is in people's bloods, because it's just been, James has been a great addition and a true extension of our family, and represents that farming mentality, which right now is a shrinking number of people. And I'm just so proud to be able to, make that connection not only to the brewers, but hopefully the beer drinkers out there also connect with that value of, families like the Moncheens and like the Peralts and like the Carpenters. That's of tremendous value to me. That's what gets me up in the morning, gets me driving every day. So James, what have you seen in your time here with this wild company and these wild brewers?
I suppose it's just incredible to see the connections between the brewers across Australia and New Zealand and their want to and their drive to get over to the Yakima Valley to see what's going on and get involved. So I do have a question written down here as well, basically directed at Steve and Jason here. What does it mean to you guys to have the brewers from down here in Australia and New Zealand wanting to make that 24-hour journey across the Pacific to the Yakima Valley at every harvest?
Well, from our standpoint, I could say that it's exceptionally meaningful. To make that level of commitment, it just shows what we've all been talking about here, that the importance of those relationships, the commitment to those relationships, and maybe most importantly, perhaps, is the commitment to procuring and securing that quality crop, that commitment we have to producing it, but then also the commitment to show that, yeah, we're interested in that. We appreciate your efforts and what you're doing in terms of making sure we're producing the top-notch quality. Because that's a big deal. We talk a lot about sustainability, and it's not just words to us. It's the truth. We live by that. I'm a fourth generation. Steve, you're fifth generation, I believe. And I mean, when we talk about sustainability, when we're talking farming, that's what it's all about. And really, the first piece of that is making sure that we have a product that's meaningful to the customer, and the fact that they're willing to travel all the way from the Southern Hemisphere, all the way across the globe, to come check it out while we're harvesting and make sure that quality's there. That's really what it's all about compared to where we were, say, 10, 15, 20 years ago. So I think it's at the core of all of our sustainability efforts. So.
No, it means everything to have brewers like Scottie come and visit us. Being a grower-owned company, we understand really that quality begins in the field with our hop growers, and really between Ryan and I, it's our job to be stewards of that quality and really not mess it up, because if we did, we'd have growers like Jason mad at us and brewers like Scottie mad at us. So it's a lot of pressure this time of the year to get those hops in cold storage. My office is right in the cluster of folks that are doing all the planning to make sure that those hops get pelletized right away, so we can preserve that quality that Jason and our other growers have worked hard to produce all year. So it really means everything. That's been our mission from day one, to make those connections. And it's a bonus when Scottie comes up, if he can sneak some beer across the border as well, just so we can taste some of his wonderful creations. That's what really makes it worth it.
That's great. And I can.
Sorry,
you're right, Scottie. I was going to say we've got a plan in place to get some beer over to you. There's no doubt about it.
Fantastic. And I've got to say, just from my side, like, it's very, very gratifying to get some of our beers back, so that Ryan and Steve and Jason can taste our beers, can taste their own work and their own passion in the beer that I've been able to put my imprint on, and then bring it all the way back where, in a lot of ways, where it really started from. Like, it's an amazing round the world trip in a little tin, it's fantastic, especially to be able to, it's amazing to have a beer with Steve, one of our beers that's got his Citra in it, and them standing out the front of Carpenter ranches, or to be drinking a couple of our beers that I've muled over and be drinking them with Jason in his tap room, and then turn around and have Jason say, "Do you recognise that?" And it was the original hazies, I think, the 500ml ones. And just from my point of view, like, that's a real wow moment, those sorts of things, because it's quite surreal to realise, again, this feedback loop that just goes round and round and benefits everybody. It's kind of, if that was a bit like you guys were saying about if you didn't get paid for it or you didn't make any money, it's such a deep part of your DNA and what you do it anyway. And it's very much the same for me. Like, if that's all I ever got out of beer was those moments and those connections, and that's enough. I'd just go live in a box.
Yeah.
Drink beer.
That's not to say we shouldn't be profitable at the grower level or at the brewer level. Behind every successful man is a woman who made it necessary, or so to speak. And I'm saying that without my wife here, I would get a club over my forehead. But no, just the passion that's involved in it, the wonderful. I've said it before. There's nothing more rewarding than being part of something that's much bigger than yourself as an individual. And that's what I think we have here with not only our company, but also our many relationships with truly the world's finest brewers, people like Scottie and others. So that's the rewarding part of this, and it's just makes you want to get up in the morning, and even when it's smoky and you've got this crazy virus floating around and everything else, it really what makes you want to get up in the morning and work hard to make it all happen.
And apart from the smoke, are you guys happy with how the year's going so far with the harvest and the the season itself? Have you had a good year?
Yeah, I think the crop's been off just a little bit in general, which, if ever there was a year that doesn't bother you too much, it's this one, because we have seen, especially some of our customers that don't have the ability to put their beer in cans or bottles are hurting right now with all the lockdowns and whatnot. But aside from that, it's despite all the challenges, we miss seeing all you guys. That's probably the biggest thing. I guess the positive side of that is our livers are about as healthy as they've ever been the middle of September. But it's, quality's been good. I try to get out every day with my little trier and see what's coming in. And I've been very impressed with the aromas of what's been delivered so far. Certainly this time of the year, we've got some hops that are looking a little bit tired and need to be in the bale and delivered to us. But we're kind of getting into the alpha hops now, and most of the aromas are in the barn where, and some of them are even the pellet already, just because that's part of our system to get them there. But I think we'll have another great year from a quality standpoint.
Awesome. Because I do remember when I was there last year that I think all you guys were telling me that the 2019 growing year was kind of one out of the box with the slightly cooler summer, was it? I think that helped things quite a bit for you guys, and great yields and great weather and just that right climatic conditions for last year that made it something really special. So
yeah, good year.
Yeah. Well,
Jason, what is that field you're sitting in there, Jason?
This is the Single Hill.
oh, nice.
Breeding plot.
Hey,
Yeah.
I missed that place.
Impressive virtual background, huh? It's interactive. So.
Did I see Otter poking around back there just a little while back? I think.
Yeah. Him and Penny are around here somewhere. Here's Penn's right here. Here, Penn. There she is.
So, Jason, for those who don't know what the Single Hill plot is, what do you got going on out there?
So it's one of the earlier stages of the breeding program. So we start out, of course, making our crosses, and then the crosses result in seed. And since hops have separate male and female plants, the every seed is different. So when we plant that out, we start out with just an individual plant, and that's really what we're talking about here. Is every plant is an individual, and so we walk that and look at each one and decide if they have characteristics that we're interested in, harvest, sample, and get feedback when we can, and then make some decisions. The next stage then would be advanced lines. That's where we'd start sending samples out, expand it out a bit, and get brewer feedback. But
Yeah, one of the most amazing places in the world right there behind you, Jason. Just every cone smells different, looks different. How many individual plants are in that field there, do you think?
This year in this field, we're probably around 13,000 different individual plants that we're looking at. So it's certainly, to your point, one of my favorite places to be. As you know, I come out every evening and sit out here, and don't sit, I'm mostly walking, but walk through and check each one out, and smell the ones that are most interesting. But, yeah, it's a great place to be.
Scottie, you've had a wander through the Single Hill before.
Oh yeah. It's almost like Disneyland for brewers. Just go and yes, it truly is. It's like a kid in a candy store, really, to be able to just walk up, especially when you're down there with Jason and the dogs and Joe and those guys, and just to wander around and go, yeah, this one's giving us this one's looking a bit funny, this one's, this is a cross of that and that, and this one looks weird but it smells really nice, or this one looks pretty and it's a bit of a dog, what do you think, and just to be able to just sort of be in there and think, so this is where the next Sabro or the next Talus or the next 630 or 522 is going to come from, and that's like, no, it's just a field of possibilities. that sounds like marketing, but that's how it feels to me. It's just fantastic.
That's the reality. That Scottie, one thing we were talking earlier about, trying to look through a crystal ball or figure out what's interesting or what's going to be in demand a few years from now. I think an important piece to that is not getting caught in the trap of trying to supply necessarily. You have to supply customers with what they want, but at the same time, you don't want to get too focused, too myopic on trying to focus in on just what customers want right now in a given time. Sometimes you got to be looking for things that customers don't even know they want yet. Would you say that that's the case with beer? I mean, I truly in my career, I've been inspired by brewers. The fact that you look at like where IPA went, just using that as an example, when that started to take off, nobody was sitting there going, this is what drinkers want. Drinkers want this big, huge hoppy beer with, ridiculous amounts of hops in it, and these big tropical flavors. That was, at that time, I think I was told by a couple of my mentors that aroma was dead. And, and that was obviously not true. So what do you see in beer? What do you see with your customers, or what do you see like maybe in your own head as to what's exciting you that maybe the customer doesn't even know they want yet?
Yeah, it's a funny one. I know particularly when, when we were getting Balter going, and while I was still waiting for the equipment, and the other guys that I started with, they're like, so what's the first beer going to be? And I told them what XBA was, and I'd brewed a bunch of it at home for 18 months before I even knew any of those guys. So I showed them, and it was like, this will be our first beer. And my whole point of view was that, like, if this is where sort of mainstream beer is here, and this is where pale ale is right now, because, XBA is a 5% beer, I said, XBA, this beer of ours is going to have to land up over the bar, like on the other side, almost into slightly uncomfortable territory, to pull people along with us. I guess it is trying to, show them something that they didn't know that they wanted. But also that, it was like, this beer hopefully it'll be a beer where it actually takes a little bit of effort to really get under the skin and really enjoy this beer. Because my analogy to that is music, and I'm a 90s guy, so, the Seattle was my thing, I grew up to Alice in Chains and Soundgarden, and I've named beers after those bands, and, all those sorts of guys. And I used to use the analogy that, that I thought, beer can be like an album like Dirt, which is an Alice in Chains album. That's, when you first listen to it, it's really confronting and it's really dense and it's sort of disorientating and all that sort of thing. And it's sort of bleak and harsh or whatever. But once you sort of peel that back a bit and it starts to really get under your skin, you realize that there's just so much beautiful harmony and melody in there. There's so much beautiful music going on. And it's all wrapped up in human emotion, I suppose. And I think that the beer could be very much that same sort of thing, because I had initially, in my mind, I had this defense when people first tried XBA, they were going to tell me what it was like. And that the Alice in Chains defense was my defense, was like, just Just try it for a little bit. Let it in. If you let it in, it'll reward you. And the lucky thing for us is I didn't need to do that because people just started drinking it straight off the bat, you know. So that's one of those once in a lifetime sort of things. But I really think that's important, you know, when it, because to use that music analogy, I'm sure we've all got records or CDs or downloads where you listen to it, and the first time you listen to an album, you love it to bits. But after a week or two, you go, that's not that good at all, you know, because it doesn't take any effort. And I think that beer drinkers now, they're almost going full circle. There's, you know, it started, as you said, with the IPA thing, where it actually takes effort and commitment to explore those flavors, because they're not necessarily that common or that familiar, or to a lot of people that pleasant to start with. But, you know, that's the whole thing about bitterness. It's something that we as humans are sort of wired to reject, but you can learn to love it. Like same thing with chili. You know, when you first try chili, it's too hot and it makes your eyes water, and, you know, you'd be just chugging liters of milk or whatever, and you're crying and your tears rolling down your face. But within about 2 weeks or so, suddenly you're putting chili on your donuts and on your breakfast cereal. And that's what happens to people, I reckon. So I think there's always going to be, I think there's, how it looks down here anyway, there's always going to be people searching for more. And I think people have really moved with beer beyond just inebriation or just refreshment, but into experience. That beer, in a lot of ways, beer can be an experience, or it's a partner to the experience, you know, that they're having around them. So, you know, there's almost, you know, there's such a thing, I guess, as occasion beers and celebration beers, and that's the beauty of beer and brewing, I think, these days, and the market and the world that we're living in, that there are those segments, you know, that different people can make different beer for different folks and still make a living out of it, you know. I guess once upon a time, if we weren't all making industrial lagers and we weren't all buying, you know, like Nobles or just high alpha hops or whatever, to use as little as possible to go as far as possible, as cheaply as possible, then we'd probably all be out of jobs. Because I'm probably not, you know, I'm probably not that guy to make those sorts of beers, and you guys are certainly well above and beyond just thinking about that single thing as well. And our audience, our combined audience, I think they want more experience from us. And I think for a long time there, over the last few years, it can be where we've had a little bit of a monkey on the back of our own doing, where we've made our audience have really short attention spans, because we've kind of taught them to demand of us a brand new beer every 35 minutes or twice a week or whatever, which can be really hard, particularly for new brewers and young breweries that may start off doing that thing and feeling really flexible, but you don't learn your discipline. You don't get the miles under your wheels. I think doing those sorts of things, you don't necessarily build the base of your pyramid to give yourself the skills and the knowledge and the foresight that you might need to have any length of time in this game, you know. And but I think we're starting to see now also people, I think there'll always be a flight back to quality, you know, and that's what ties all of us together so tightly, I think, you know, that at the end of the day, people can tell good beer from bad beer. And I think as they get more and more educated, I guess they can tell. I think increasingly people will be able to tell a good beer, even if they don't like it, if it's not their thing, that they'll be able to tell that it's well made and it's made with passion, which will usually be enough to get them to at least try it in the first place, you know. And yeah, it's you know, I'm still waiting for the great resurgence of Pilsner. Maybe that's the end game. That's the final evolution for beer geeks. I've seen that on a T-shirt where they start out as swamp monsters, and you know, it's about blonde ales and pale ales, then IPA as they're evolving up out of the swamp, and then it goes to sours and imperial stouts, and as they finally stand up as Homo erectus or whatever, it says Pilsner.
Well, I can say that it's going to take me a while to get to evolve to that level, Scottie, because I am damn comfortable in the IPA world.
Yeah. Oh, me too. That's me, sort of still hunched over.
Yeah, me too.
You know, Scottie, just speaking of this music and beer connection, have you ever thought of maybe naming a beer after Elvis or something? I'm sure your mother would be proud if you ever came. Oh, there it is, Handsome Elvis. That's
Mate,
great.
Every time I see that, I think of you. And for the folks out there, when I had the great pleasure of showing Steve and Ryan and their families around Balter, Steve stopped in his tracks when I had a little beer called Handsome Elvis out on the tap room, and it was the year before we canned any of it, I think. And what he said before was totally true. He was actually it's 2 pints in, and he was singing. Every question we asked him was sung back to us as an Elvis song.
Yeah.
Come on now, don't be cruel.
Yeah, that. But it was great. And you guys would all be happy to know, I think there's a bunch of 522 in that beer.
Nice.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was great. I certainly will never forget that night, Steve. It was you were relentless with the Elvis quips. It was fantastic. The best thing is Priscilla hasn't sued us yet, so you know, I think we might get to make it again next year. So the first year I put it in cans was last year. That was a little bit on the hectic side though, because we were playing with liquid nitrogen and dosing that into cans for the first time, and it was so the cans were probably about 30% of them were exploding within 3 or 4 seconds of coming out of the canning line.
So they all shook up?
Anyone think you'd scripted this? Yeah, they were. And especially if you dropped one, it'd just explode. And there were ones that I could see them deforming because there was so much pressure built up, and I'd gingerly pick them off the canning line and they'd still explode. There's like nitroglycerin in there or something, but you live and you learn. I'm glad you weren't there, Steve. You would have seen so much Elvis going on the floor and down the drains. You would have been in tears for sure.
I can't help falling in love with that beer. That's just amazing. You got me going now.
Yep, he's on a roll. This is where James has got to help me get some to you.
Absolutely. It's the next task.
And some hazy over to Jason. And see, the folks probably may not remember, but Ryan and Jason were coming. You guys were meant to be in Perth. Was it January? You were going to come over?
Yeah, January, February, somewhere in there.
Yeah, right. Because I'd kept a box of dry haze for you guys because I was going to be able to give them to you in person, and a box of Dimples, which was the beer that Ryan and myself and the Barrel Breaker guys had made the year before, which had some 692, and it also had a lot more 630 in it, which is another story. Yeah, unfortunately, COVID happened to all of us, so I had to pretty much drink it all myself, and I've got one more can of these, so I'm sorry, fellas. I couldn't tip them down the drain. And
You'll have to make more.
Oh, definitely making more. So that's we've got to work on a plan to get some over to Yakima.
Yeah. Well, we're looking forward to the opportunity to come back, and that would have been my first trip to Perth. So it's still on my list to get out there and see some of those characters on the other side of your fine country. But this has been an incredible time to catch up. Scottie, a true honor to speak with all of you. I know for us, Harvest is just a day in and day out, 24/7 type of operation. So it's just been awesome to take a little break and catch up with old friends. James, thanks so much. And I guess, Scottie, if you haven't taken a chance to view some of these other virtual harvest ones, I would recommend it.
Oh, totally.
There's people from all in the company telling their story with their connections. And I think we have in this month, we have 67 different presentations like this. I don't know if you can call this a presentation, but that's what we're going to call it today. So zoom into it, check them out. I know I had a couple of beers the other night, and all of a sudden I don't know if I was binge drinking or binge watching, but it was late in the hour when I finally turned it off. But just incredible. I'm incredibly humbled again by this company pushing ourselves to do this virtual thing. You know, it's really easy for us to invite people and show them around and take them to tacos and tour the Single Hills. But this whole COVID thing has been really hard for us not to have that connection. And so I appreciate being able to take this time, you know, your morning, our afternoon to again have that connection. It's really a bit strange through a computer screen, but this is really meaningful, and this is why we do what we do. So thank you so much.
100%. Thank you guys so much. It's been awesome. And again, like the commitment, the folks are really getting used to doing things remotely. As it turns out, we were the first Crohn's customer anywhere in the world to do a remote commissioning of a brew house or any other bit of their equipment. So yeah, it's funny how you just kind of get used to doing things because you have to, you know you've got to get the job done, so you go ahead and do it anyway, and it all comes down to that can-do attitude, and the only barriers ever really are the ones you put in front of yourself. And you know, there'll be no barriers to me getting back over there as soon as I possibly can. So I mean, it was great to have you guys host me. I've done it for the last couple of years where I you know, sort of show up on your doorstep in June, you know, months before the harvest, just because I can't keep away from the place and I miss you guys. And, you know, you're talking, Steve, about your liver's healing, but I bet the sports club's hurting. The sports centre's probably in trouble without, you know, all us reprobates being in there to be able to drink all the beer that's going around. So I hope everyone in Yakima is going okay, you know, not just the growers and farmers and all you guys, but I hope Yakima in general is doing okay over there. I love the place.
Yeah, I appreciate that. This is a challenge, a new opportunity for all of us to, I guess, make decisions on how we buy things. And like you said, all the small businesses, there's a lot of challenge right now. And I know I'm working hard to make sure I give my money to those types of businesses. Because it'll be a bump in the road for a lot of people.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. How's and just quickly, how's Steve from back east?
Steve Loneman.
Loneman, have you seen much of him this year?
Well, just virtually, and I usually talk to Steve on the phone, you know, whenever I can. But he's doing great. He's doing real well. Yeah. Out there.
Awesome. Cheyenne and Victoria and and Kathy and all the crew in at HQ are doing well?
Doing wonderful. I'm actually going to go meet Steve out there. We're going to do the Alpha King competition. You know,
oh, wow.
Thing. We're going to do it out at Three Floyds. So watch for that, because we're going to keep that 22-year-old tradition alive. That'll be here in about a month. Kathy, she's doing great. Like you said, she's always taking care of our connection to our community. So somehow, some way, she slipped it past everyone, but there's a taco truck sitting out in front of our office. So that's great for the taco truck and for everyone who gets to enjoy it. But they're like, where are all these brewers? Last year, we couldn't make enough tacos. So good on Kathy for keeping that taco truck in business.
That's awesome.
Cool. And I'd obviously like to echo Ryan's sentiment from earlier and just send a huge thank you for you guys for making the time to jump on and get in front of the Australian New Zealand market. It's been great. I'll just hand it over to Nicole now to wind it up.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Really appreciate
Oh, we lost your audio there, Nicole.
How about we try this again? Thank you guys so much for joining us today and for all the speakers. You guys are fantastic. Thank you so much, Scottie, for your time, James, Jason, Ryan, and Steve. And just a reminder for everyone, we did record this session. It will be available on virtualharvest.com here within the hour, as well as all the previous and to come sessions will be available as well. If you do have any questions, feel free to email brewschool@yakimachief.com and we will get those answered. Other than that, thank you guys and everyone else. Have a great night and a great day wherever you are in the world. So thank you so much.
Say hello to Nicole for us, Scottie.
Sure will, Stu. Say good day to Diana and all the grandkids and
All right.
the rest of the Carpenter crew.
All right, we'll do.
Great talking.
All right. It was good talking to all you guys. Take care. Hopefully see you
Thanks, guys.
All right. See you, Jay.